I hope they talked you into it somehow because it's pretty early. But thanks for being here. Anyhow, it's really awesome to be here at the 2017 Congress and have all of you here. We had an amazing winter. I've got to say, really an incredible winter. 21 medals in World Championships or their equivalent, tying the Norwegians. Of course, our goal, best in the world, that everybody's well aware of, and really what we live for, we managed to achieve, at least tying them. So next year it may take more, it may take less. We have a feeling it's going to take more to be able to beat them. But we were very proud of the way our athletes did this year. 134 podiums this season and 21 Junior World Championship medals, 5 World Cup titles, an extraordinary season. Our athletes did amazing jobs. Of course, Michaela winning the overall in the World Cup, 2 medals in the World Championships, and extraordinary season. Lindsay winning a medal, coming back from that terrible arm injury that we're all well aware of. Extraordinary season. Our cross-country team, record medals in the World Championships in Lahti. I was lucky enough to be there when Keegan and Jesse won that first night, and of course Sadie not long after that. 3 medals. An amazing performance in Lahti. That opening night, the excitement and just the electricity in the air, and then the fact that we made it through those earlier elimination heats, and the perseverance and the grit, and finally the final sprint to the medals at the end. It was just amazing to be there and to see that and be part of that. I was thrilled that I was able to watch that happen. And of course, the rest of our team, also extraordinary performances. Ashley Caldwell, the first time landing in the World Championships, a full double, full, taking the gold. Extraordinary also. Kevin Bickner flying farther than any other ski jumper, American ski jumper in history in the ski flying. Amazing. I don't know if any of you have watched that on video, online. It's just extraordinary. You think he's going to come down and land, and he just keeps taking off again and goes that much further. It's just stunning how far he flew that day. And the rest of our team, obviously, McRae Williams, our own here from Park City, World Championship gold, Lindsay Jacobellis, Haley Langland, Julia Marino. I could go on and on and on. I would certainly forget and not be able to recite everybody's amazing performances this year, but it was exciting. It was extraordinary. And, who do we have to thank for that? Who do we acknowledge? Obviously, the athletes themselves, their parents, their coaches, their high-performance coaches, their physical therapists, their sports psychologists, coaches, their home programs, their sponsors, their supporters, our sponsors, our donors, our partners that allow us to generate enough revenue to field these teams. I mean, all of these people made that happen. Many of you in this room made those results happen because those kids started in your programs. But there's also a team behind the team that makes that all happen, and it's often dubbed administration here in Park City. But how do we put those teams on the road, and how do we make all that happen? Just by example, there must be 15,000 receipts that went through our accounting department this year. I don't know if Linnea is here today. If she was, I would embarrass her, but she probably processed every single one of those. And of course, foundation, marketing, athlete career education, all of these support systems, the program managers, they all make this happen. It's the team behind the team that usually you don't see, but they're such a critical part of what we do. And they know that. They know that. They walk in the door. I don't know if you guys remember last year, I was telling the story about the custodian at NASA who got asked in the middle of the night by a consultant, what do you do? Well, I put men and women on the moon. And I truly believe that everybody who works for us understands and knows that we put men and women on podiums. And every job is important. Nothing is too small. It's all necessary to make it all happen. Many of you in this room, if not all of you in this room, are an integral part of that. So for that, we acknowledge and thank you, too, that our athletes can achieve what they do because what we do collectively as a family are able to make that all happen. So it's one heck of a team. What a season this year in events. 30 World Cup events. Now, we normally do 16. In addition, the World Junior Championships held here at Utah Olympic Park and also down at Soldier Hollow, separate organizing committee. We were part of it. Amazing local group that made that happen. Nordic combined and cross country and ski jumping, all the Nordic events held here in the US. But 30 World Cups in the United States. I mean, 30. And I'm looking at Callum, and I have more wrinkles than he does, but I tell you, his team did an amazing job pulling that off. And of course, challenges with the weather. We lost Beaver Creek this year, first time in 16 years, just too warm a fall in Colorado for that to happen. But otherwise, and still planning that had to happen, and so there was still a lot of work that went into Beaver Creek, even though we lost those races. But 30 events, and many of them quite historic, here in the United States, and of course, weather challenges this winter, Solitude and Mammoth. I mean, what do you know? Our sports are in the winter. Sometimes it snows and blows. That happens. We just don't want it to happen on the day of our events. Anybody know where this is? How many of you were at Killington this year? So, a historic event. First time the World Cup had been back to the United States in 38 years. Vermont, 38 years. Who was in Stratton in 1978 to win victories? So quite a few people in this room. The Mares won both those races, so I think that was the previous Vermont World Cup. Incredible. You know, I don't know, Hervig, if you're in the room, anybody from Powder Corp, amazing commitment on their part to pull this off. Now, as they're constructing this, as we're co-hosting and planning this event, we have no idea how many people are going to show up. I was worried because every single person I talked to in these said, yep, we're coming. 100%. So, and that was just my sample size. But we thought maybe around 10,000. On this day, there were 18,000 people there. And they were able to handle it. And the atmosphere was electric. It was absolutely amazing. And Michaela pulled it off with a fifth and then winning the slalom. And you talk about pressure. I mean, that's probably the most distressed I've seen her in a long time. I was in the athlete lounge in between runs, and she wouldn't look at anybody. And I don't blame her, because she had 18,000, the weight of 18,000 people on her shoulder the second run. But we all know it worked out really well, and she pulled it off. Anybody know where this is? Squaw Valley. So, same story. I think it's been greater than 38 years since there was a World Cup in Squaw Valley. So, of course, Heavenly more recently. But extraordinary event also. Michaela winning both races there. I mean, really just a Cinderella story in terms of how that worked out. And both of these areas, all of our event sites, thousands and thousands of volunteers that make it happen, professional race crews that make it happen. And of course, Copper Mountain with the Grand Prix this year. Also, as I mentioned, at Mammoth, Solitude, Deer Valley, the freestyle event here, our mainstay, has more than 8,000 people a night. It's really, it's amazing when you go to those events. But the reason I want to show these pictures of all these people is these crowds dwarfed the average European audience at equivalent races in Europe. Maybe Flachau, the night slalom for women, is the only event on the women's tour that has as many or maybe more than Killington had or Squaw Valley had. But that's it. I mean, that's one race. And we had multiple races that had tons and tons and tons of people watching. So racing, skiing, riding, our sports here in the United States are really strong. We do an extraordinary job of holding these events. And for that, Callum and the events department, all of our partners, thank you very much. I think I skipped a few here. This, anybody know where this is? It's a little harder to tell. Aspen. That's right. So 9 races in 5 days. World Cup finals in the United States again. Now, if you can imagine what it's like cramming that many events into those few days. On top of it, the weather was, you could say, beautiful. Nice freezing nights, maybe 31 degrees, up to 60 degrees during the day. So the race crews there did an extraordinary job on the hill with the salt in the afternoons, and as soon as it got wet, there were fair races, including the second runs of the slaloms, which is always the trickiest thing to pull off. And Aspen did an incredible job. There was amazing pressure and intensity on this event. While Squaw and Killington were first time in a long time type events, Aspen has run many events. They've never run an event of this magnitude. And of course, there was a lot of pressure with all the controversy around, a double chairlift at the bottom. So they did a great job. We had team after team after team say how amazing it was and how fair it was, and what an extraordinary World Cup finals those events were. So we were very proud of that, very happy with that. So rest of the year, how we do financially, we did okay. We're in a surplus situation. Our board meeting Saturday morning will cover all the financials. Foundation department did really well, set records, beat their goals in terms of raising money. The donor support we have is extraordinary in this country. Marketing department worked incredibly hard hosting at all of these events, taking care of our partners, making it all happen. We have a new chief commercial officer coming in July. Can't announce that person's name because it isn't public, but we're very excited about that arrival, and our marketing department is very excited. We have a great team there also. High Performance did an extraordinary job prepping and getting all our athletes ready for this year, dealing with the injuries. We had about our normal 10% season-ending injury rate, something we'd always like to improve on, but we're doing the very best we can there. But we had a pretty decent season. We managed to get through. We managed to make everything balanced. We ran, as you know, nearly 30 events in the United States. And that's not inexpensive. I mean, to hold these events in the United States, we end up with a net loss on each one of those. And the ski areas and ski and riding resorts that also host those events, they have a net loss in hosting that event. It's got to be the marketing value. It's got to be the attendance of people at those events that make it happen. And so that was really, really a big deal to us. So we had a pretty good season. Looking forward, how's it look? Budgets, we're doing okay. We're going to spend about $1.3 million more this coming season on athletics than we did last year. The Olympics are a big part of that. It takes a lot of money to be able to handle our teams well, to keep them in separate housing so they don't face any of the potential sicknesses in the Olympic Village. Whenever it's possible, we try to keep them away prior to their events. Luke's team handles that. The logistics are just staggering. We have a meeting every 2 weeks now, every 3 weeks, involving the Olympics and all the things that are going to happen leading up to that. So we're well prepared. Our teams are well prepared. I think from a strategy standpoint, we couldn't be in a better shape in that sense. So our vision, our mission, our goals, and our values, that has served us well. We live by that. Check. Our long-term strategic plans that we reevaluate yearly, every year, and that we live by them. And strategy is king there, because you're always trying to figure out, where do we put our resources? How do we become the best in the world? How do we regain that title and stay there? That's something we work on every summer. Check. A new chief commercial officer coming in marketing, foundation doing extremely well, achieving financial growth. Check. Those are all very, very important things to us. And we spent a tremendous amount of time prepping and planning this spring to make sure we're in the right position for all of these things. So we're feeling pretty good about next year. We're looking forward to it. We feel well prepared. In addition, on this screen, U.S. Ski and Snowboard and our branding change. But it's more than branding. There's sessions today to talk more mechanically about our brand. But what it's about is really, it's about one team. And years ago now, we were looking at this carefully, and we were trying to understand, we have all these individual teams And we have these individual marks and brands, and how do we tell our story? And we formed a task force. We talked about this a little bit last year. For a year and a half, we met. And where we ended up is that we realized that we are all strongest together. We all believe and love our sports, passion for skiing and riding in the mountains and on trails. We all have that in common. There's incredible differences between the teams. Don't get me wrong, we're not homogenizing anything. But we realize that we are all one team in that sense. We have a common goal of best in the world, yet the whole concept of one team goes well beyond that, because while we have this elite Olympic medal vision, we also care and understand about our pipelines and about all of our membership in general. Not everybody's going to get there. 99.9% of the people involved in our sports are not going to get to an Olympic or a World Cup podium someday. That's also true in every single club. We all have to deal with that kind of bifurcation of our organizations, where we are trying to launch kids to the top of the world. At the same time, we want to make sure it's a great experience for everybody. Everybody has a chance to pursue their goals at whatever level they may be. We all want to work hard, achieve excellence, innovation, evolve, and get better. And that's what's so important at every single different level, because that's what everybody loves, is that pursuit of your sport and the passion. And if all we cared about was elite, then it wouldn't work. You have to care about the entire body of people who are involved with and are excited by and love being part of these sports. So one team means all the way top to bottom, the broad part of the pyramid, as well as across all sports. And I really feel that clubs are really a microcosm of us in that sense, because you have such a broad role. And some clubs, and believe me, they come up and they talk to us and they say, well, we're in West Virginia. They don't say it this way, but they're kind of saying we don't care about podiums. We can't win an Olympics. We can't send a kid to the Olympics. Number one, that's not true, because you never know where they're going to come from. You study all of the athletes on our teams that have made it to the Olympics and made it to podiums over the years. They come from all walks of life, and they come from all over the country. You don't know. What you do know is that you can create and run great programs that they can stand in and they can advance from, and maybe they have to go to another program, and eventually they come to a national team where the best of the best are put together, which is absolutely necessary to compete against the best in Europe. But you never know what's going to happen, so everybody does have that. So that's the nature of a vision. It's a desired, hoped-for future state, best in the world. It's not something unachievable. It's a dream. Some will make it, some won't. But it's that dream that everybody wants to be part of. Everybody wants to be associated with winning. We certainly want to win. We're measured by winning. Every 4 years, for 2.5 weeks, we are measured by Olympic medals. That's the only time the non-endemic crowd, the people who are following us closely, grows to just about everybody in the United States because of patriotism. There's an American, they're sliding down the mountain. Oh, that sport is called X, and I'm going to watch it on NBC, or watch it online, or I'm going to follow them. And that's how we're measured, and that's what drives our commercial success, and frankly, our donor success too, because everybody wants to be part of a winning organization. You have to be focused on that. That's absolutely critical. And that's where one team came in, where we realized we're all one. We're not big enough to slice it many different ways. We have to compete against other sports marketing properties. I don't want the World Surf League to take one of our major sponsors in 2 years because they have more reach, their sport's easier to understand. I don't know, for whatever reason. We need to compete commercially. We need to compete for donors. We need to compete for athletes. Athletes have to want to join our programs at the grassroots level, and parents have to want to join the programs. So you have to be able to tie this all together and to explain it. And so that's why we're so thrilled about one team. We'll talk about it more today. But it became very clear in this process that our strongest brands are our national teams. U.S. snowboard team, U.S. free ski team, U.S. ski team. It's about the athletes. Commercially, nobody cares about the organization. It sits in the background. From a donor standpoint, they don't either. They care about the athletes. They care about propelling the athletes in their passion, their sport, and their pursuit of excellence. So that's the bottom line. Those are our 3 strong commercial brands. It took us a year and a half to figure this out. It was a long process. There was 12 to 20 people involved in this the whole time. But then we had to get to the point where we had to develop a new mark. And it had to be one that everybody could use. And we feel like we've achieved that. But we had to leave some things behind. We had to find something that everybody could rally behind. And at the same time, Jean Jackson, who was running the task force for branding, she did a great job coaching us. She said, don't fall on your sword about a mark. It's just a logo. The brand is the whole picture. It's about all the people. It's about the teams. It's not about a mark. But a mark is still very important, obviously. I know Dylan Omlin, if you're in the room, but I was in the Snowboard Sport Committee meeting last year and talking about this as we were just getting started, sort of trying to breach the subject of, geez, maybe you guys, we could all come up with a logo that everybody be happy with. And Dylan just completely brought the room down in roaring laughter when he said, you know, I look at that shield, the ski team shield, and I think, cops, run like hell till you're cuffed. And I'm like, okay, I get it, you know? So we got to find something new. And we think we did. But it was just hysterical. And it was really fun to stand in front of that same crowd yesterday. And, you know, a few people wearing the hat. So we do have hats here. We'd love you guys to grab them. It's going to work out great. I guess it's over there, isn't it? Now I know, well, there might be somebody in this room who knows what this is. John does. So Steamboat Club, Steamboat Ski and Snowboard Club, has an event, I think it's called the Emerald Mountain Challenge, where it's a running race up the mountain. And they have the entire, by age group, all of the sports involved. So in this group, this is a microcosm of our one team. You have riders, you have skiers, you have jumpers, cross-country skiers, Nordic combined. In there is a complete assortment of kids, and they all race together to the top. And it just struck me as what a great metaphor. And I think it's Ryan Clow who supplied this for us, who's on your team. Really was telling the story about how this works, and the whole theme of one team fits so well there. And there's another scene that struck me this winter that I was lucky to be part of, where, you know, after Keegan and Jesse won their medals, and they go to anti-doping, and then they go to the press conference, and then they do this and that. Remember, it was a night event, so it's almost 9 o'clock by the time they got back to the wax room, wax trucks, wax canisters, whatever you want to call them, where everybody is around, all the techs, all the coaches. Liz Arki was there. She was able to find some champagne at 8:30 at night in Lahti, Finland. And we had a little toast to Keegan and to Jesse that night, and to everybody who had been supporting them. And it was an amazing scene that just having so many different people there who were just so excited. The last bus to the athlete and coaches village was 25 minutes away, is about to leave, and we're trying to celebrate. And finally, Keegan's father shows up with Breck, who he'd been pushing around all night long, bouncing him, you know, as waiting for Keegan. Nobody was really thinking ahead that it was going to take the extra 2 hours before they could leave the venue that night. So Breck's pants were a little bit wet. And he comes back, he's crying. The techs help, they get him out on a wax table, they change him in the wax room. But the best part of that scene was Eli Brown taking a heat gun and drying Breck's pants. So we're like, this is just surreal, this whole, you know, here we have the best in the world, cross-country athletes, celebrating, we're all there celebrating. He's trying to dry his pants so they can get him, you know, back in the car and back out the athlete village. But I mean, this really kind of epitomized the whole concept of one team. And, you know, Liz Arki, who some of you know is real support of the cross-country team, single-handedly took it on herself. Now, That is essentially a construction trailer. It's a portable unit. The cross-country events, we always have to have wax rooms. Well, the bigger countries like Norway, Sweden, Russia, they decided they were going to buy $2.5 million semi-trucks and equip them to be permanent wax rooms and ski storage facilities. So these semis pull up at the next event, and they pop out the sides and they pop out the back. And you have an interior room in the Norwegian truck, and the top pops up. There's an athlete lounge on the top, and on the first floor, it's now turns 24 feet wide, 63 feet long, and they have 22 wax tables with downdraft ventilation because of all the dangerous waxes. And all the skis are Velcroed to the wall. And in their truck, I think they have probably, Chris, Matt, 2,000 pairs? Probably. I know we carry about 800 pairs in a Sprinter, an overloaded Sprinter. We get to the race and we unload them all into wax rooms like that. And it's just incredibly tough. And waxing requires 5, 6, 7, 8 pairs per athlete that day, out testing them, finally picking the formula and going. And to be competitive at that level, you've got to be obviously fast. I mean, they've been skating for 5 kilometers and the distance is this close at the end. It's really important. Liz raised the money, over $600,000, enabled us to buy a truck. So it's being built right now in Scandinavia, and we'll have it this year. And that's really neat because we're going to be more competitive as a result because of that. The athletes will have a portable home. We can keep the 800 pairs of skis in a truck safely, ready to be used, waxed, put away. The setup and breakdown time will be a lot smaller, and these guys work harder than anybody I've ever seen. The hours they put in because of the logistics, let alone the sport taking that much, is absolutely huge. So, one team, that's the message. We're all united trying to do exactly the same thing. We're all trying to win. We're all trying to be the best that we can. Our sister organizations are doing the same thing, USCSA, USASA by example. And I challenge them to adopt this look because we need to stop confusing parents who are entering these sports. And they're confused. It's a labyrinth of leagues or events or different races and competition events that you can go in. We need to be one united front to anybody entering our sport, to our sponsors, to our donors at the club level, all the way up. And many of the clubs know how this works, and Steamboat certainly does too, because when you have multiple sports, you have multiple organizations, and there's NCAA and USCSA, and where do you go? And we all talk in the Alpine meetings at least about the attrition we have where athletes get to be FIS, and then they're really kind of daunted by that, and they're not sure where it's going to go, and they fall out of our sport. We don't want that to happen. We want to have a fun league for everybody to compete in. It starts with NASTAR. That's why we have NASTAR now. It's that continuum. And that's also multi-sport. It's not just skiing, it's snowboarding too. So the point is, how do we keep this all together? How do we make this more attractive and interesting to people who are just learning what the heck we are? And how do we all unite and become stronger ourselves? You know, I have had a lot of people this week ask me, you know, do I like my job? Maybe because I look tired or frantic or stressed or I don't know, running from one meeting to another. And you know, the answer is yes. I do love my job. This is a dream job for me. It's hard. I know a lot of what you guys do is very hard. You know, I have these dreams or nightmares, depending on how you look at them. You know, where I'm on a race day. I can't find my skis. I'm near the start. I don't know where the skis are, and I'm running around trying to find them, and I'm all stressed up, and then I wake up. You know, in real day life, what that turns into is fundraising, winning medals, corporate sponsors, renewals, and all the other things that come together with running a large organization. But the bottom line is I absolutely love what I do, and I love what you guys do. We love what you guys do. So for all of that, thank you. Nothing could be better than being here. Have a great day. Thanks.